Today we will be going through a modern data platform in 30 days, and this is the Microsoft program through the solution assessment team that's called a DPI 30. And with me today presenting, my name is Dan Fluid. I'm the VP of Sales at Talon, and I also have Christy Verma, who is the Cloud Economics Engagement Manager for Microsoft. So we're going to start out with a quick agenda of the welcome and introductions. And the second part that we're going to be going through is DPI 30 and what is it and why should you care? Why are customers looking to take advantage of the DPI 30 program with Microsoft and Talon? Then we'll jump into a little bit of who is Talon and how can we help you? And then the DPI 30s, the basics and the SLG client success stories. We do these DPI 30 engagements across state and local government clients, across private sector clients. This one's a little bit more focused on the SLG sector. So as I said today, I'll have myself, Christy, and we also will have a special cameo by Bart Schorsch at the end who is a lot of your data and AI solution specialist for Microsoft. So now I'm going to turn it over to Christy to talk about the Azure DPI 30 engagement from the Microsoft side and kind of what the program is about and what it means for you. Go ahead, Christy.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see all your faces on the call today. So what is a DPI 30 engagement? And of course, the bottom line is why should you care, right? What is it going to do for your organization? So the DPI 30 engagement, excuse me, is an assessment or an engagement that the solution assessment team here at Microsoft is offering to specific qualified customers throughout the United States. And really what its purpose is, excuse me, sorry this morning, we realize a lot of organizations really struggle with their disparate data or non-centralized data sources. They have outdated data platforms and they don't have a lot of access to data insights. So really to help organizations realize and harness the power of their data, we're offering the data platform in 30 days engagement, and it really will help you understand the value that Azure can provide in the form of a modern data platform, and it's delivered through a consultative engagement. So it is a hands-on type engagement. And so we leverage one of our gold certified partners to deliver the engagement and really from a consultative approach, provide you with a fully modeled data platform based on some very specific use cases. So we will go through kind of like a workshop type of an engagement to understand what those critical business scenarios are that you would like to see it really built out in Azure. And depending on really what that scenario is, will dictate what technologies are used. We can use Azure Data Lake, we can use Synapse. There's a lot of different options, and it's really based on not only for what these specific use cases that you bring to the table are, but what your goals and initiatives are from a data and analytics platform within your organization, not just for today, but what does the next 12, 24 months look like? What is your roadmap? What are you looking to solve for? So we want to make sure that what we are building out is something that is useful and it's a platform that can be built upon. And the great thing about this particular engagement is at the end of the 30 to 45 days, you will end up with a fully functioning pilot of that specific use case or those use cases or scenarios that you've now brought to the table. It's now actionable and being able to be utilized fully and built upon within your organization. This is built in your tenant, your staff is trained and understands how to utilize the platform, and not only utilize it, but how to build upon it. So it's a great hands-on learning experience for your team to really get some hands-on and useful day-to-day working knowledge of all of the different capabilities and services that can be utilized in Azure as they pertain to, the scenarios and the use cases that you're looking to bring forth. So these are scenarios and use cases that you're dealing with every day, and you're looking for better ways to model data, better ways to gain access and insights to that data. And we're using new and fresh approaches in order to build that out. So it is a 30-day engagement. It is a partner delivered engagement, and it will deliver at the end of the engagement that fully functioning pilot. So I'll turn it over to Dan so you can kind of go through some ideas, go through some use cases of what Talon has built out for other customers, because I feel like that's really always the stumping point, right? It's like we have so many different, scenarios or so many use cases. Where do we begin? So we really want to make sure that we're working with all of our customers to make sure that the scenarios we hone in on and decide to move forward with are something that can actually be completed within that time frame of the engagement. So I'll let Dan kind of talk through that. And it's a great, exciting engagement, no cost to our customers. There is one little caveat there. Because this is being built in your Azure tenant, any of the charges for Azure, once this does go live in your environment, are the responsibility of the customer. That's not covered. But before anything is ever turned on and live, you will have a full architecture and cost analysis so that you know what those charges are going to be, and nothing gets turned on until you flip the switch. So just want to be completely transparent there. So with that, Dan, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you now.
Perfect. Thank you, Christy. So we're gonna start out a little bit about the Talon process and what the DPI 30 engagement is from us. And as Christy said, it's a data platform that's built in 30 days. In reality, it's 30 to 45 days until we're fully finished with it. But we've tried to simplify it in a 3-phase approach of analysis and design, deploying the solution, and transitioning to the customer. The one thing that we always say is when we work with different customers, there's 3 different kind of customers that we usually encounter. And the one is we go through and we do the analysis and design, we deploy the solution, we turn it over, and they say, hey, that's great. Like, we've got it from here. We know how to do it. You kind of have the blueprint laid down for us. We've got it from here. Then there's a second type of customer that says, that's great. And, we want to keep going. We want to do phase 4, 5, and 6, and we want to do, 10 more scenarios. We understand how to do steps 1 through 3, but can you help us with 4 through 10? And we work side by side with our customers to do the next phase of the project. And then there's another type of customer that says, all right, that's great. Here's the next 6 scenarios. Can you do it all for us? So when we go through these DPI 30 engagements, we want to make sure at the end of it that you have an Azure data platform that you understand and that you can build on from there. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the phase 1 of the project kickoff. And Christy kind of mentioned this, that we're going to go through and we're going to do an analysis of the business objectives. And this is always the slowest, and I won't say the hardest part, but the part of figuring out which scenario can we do that is going to provide the most business value so that we can go on and do more and more things. Because if somebody picks a scenario that nobody really cares about, they're like, oh, great, that's all well and good, but that really didn't help us solve a business problem or become more efficient or, move on to the next piece. So figuring out the right business scenario, going through, reference architecture documents, whiteboarding sessions, making sure that we're picking the right thing so that this can be a success in the end. And now, as Christy said, we kind of will jump into a story. We've done over the 2021, we did 23 of these DPI 30 engagements. And so I'm going to tell you the first custom story of one of them that we had. And it was the Washington State Employment Security Department. And what they had, their business problem when we went in is they said, hey, we have this daily process that it FTPs a file down and then it encrypts it. It does some stuff. It does some data, like massaging, and it takes the data and then it puts it out, and then we have a report so that we can make decisions for the next day on it. And they were like, yeah, it's a daily report. And then all of a sudden, their daily report was taking 24, 26, 28 hours to run. So they were trying to make decisions on something for the next day that, you know, it wasn't done until 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. So what we did is we took their approach that they had, and they said, hey, there's this one part that we know takes about 12 hours to do all of the processing. So out of their, 22 steps that we had, we said, let's take that 9-hour process and have that as our scenario that we're going to try and fix with the modern data platform. So we were able to take that process and get it down to under an hour. So now that their 28-hour process, but just by fixing one step in it, we were able to get it back to a daily process, that it was the reports and everything were done running by the morning, so that we could so that they could make the decisions for the next day of where to look at stuff and where to deploy the people to. And one of the things, as this slide says, is it was taking so long because they had 30 plus years of data that they were crunching and crunching and crunching. And each year that went on, it just added that much data to it. But when they started to do the modern data platform and do the processing in the cloud, they realized they had much more compute process than they did on premises. So it was something that, they took advantage of the cloud to do something better, cheaper, faster than they could before. And one of the things with this one is at the end, they said, this was something that we just could never do before, because for us to get the processing power that the cloud provides, we would have had to spend, another $60,000 to $80,000 on machines just to do this thing. And it really wasn't worth it for them. So the next piece, when we're going through the analysis, we talk about the modern data state architecture, and we will talk about all of the different line of business sources, all of the data that's coming in, whether it's logs, whether it's streaming data, unstructured data, semi-structured data. All of it will go into an Azure, usually go through the Azure Data Factory. Azure Data Factory to Azure Databricks. Sometimes it'll go directly into Azure Databricks, stored in the Azure Data Lake storage. And then a lot of customers, there's some customers that will use Synapse for analytics, some that don't. And then eventually it's all surfaced in either business services, as in applications, or Power BI reports. And this modern data state architecture is really what people are looking for the end game. But this is something that we usually can't accomplish in the DPI 30, in the 30 days. So our modern data state, this is kind of the end game of, what do we want to look like at the end of the year? And this is what we're looking at as we start to take in many different lines of business and many different data streams. But then to come in for the DPI 30 sample architecture, we will, I don't want to say dumb it down, we'll simplify it down a little bit, that we pick a data source. We'll go and most of the time use Azure Data Factory, Synapse, or Databricks, depending, sometimes both, but just taking a real quick scenario and being able to surface that data through Power BI. And from this sample architecture that we have, a lot of times customers can say, all right, we get it. Now we can take our next source and go through and do it with the next one and the next one and the next one. So we get that solid foundation, give you the tools that you have to move forward and build out to your end game architecture. We talk a little bit about sample data flows in our analysis, and a lot of stuff coming in from Azure, coming in from all different log streams, from servers, from on-premises data sources, going through doing ingestion of the data, storage of the data, and from there, just getting a basic data flow, prepping and training of the data, and then being able to surface it out to customers. And these are the types of things that we're going through in the analysis phase of seeing what data source we're going to do, how we're going to ingest it, how we're going to store it, how we're going to massage it, and how we're going to display it. And these are all things that are not done in a vacuum at Talon. This is a lot of the pieces are done with the customers, all like working hand in hand through this whole process. So the next phase that we're going to go through after we have all of our analysis, we figured out our scenario that we're going to do, we start to build out that architecture that we talked about and start having a proof of concept or a basic architecture of what's going on and getting the data starting to flow through, starting to create the Power BI reports so that you can see that the data goes in raw from this side and it comes out in a nice looking report on the other side. In this part, there's two different ways that we do this. Sometimes we do it that customers will ask us, all right, can you just do it? And then when you're done, come back and show us what you did. There's other customers that say, hey, can you show us as you're going through how these things are being built and do a little bit of training and discovery along the way so that you understand all of the different components that are going into it. So as we're going through and doing these things, a lot of the DPI 30 engagement approaches that we take are the same as all of our other projects that we do. It doesn't matter if you're doing a data project, if you're doing a custom application development project, if you're doing a lift and shift product to move servers to the cloud or an Office 365 migration. At Talon, we take our approach the same for every project because it's very, I don't want to say easy, but it's a recipe that we've had for success is that we do envisioning and road mapping. That's that analysis phase that we're going to go through and we're going to understand what you have and what you want to do, then build out a proof of concept to make sure that, hey, we're not going to spend a ton of money and a ton of time. Let's build out a small proof of concept, see if this thing suffices for your needs, and from there, have a solid foundation that we're going to build on. A lot of times when we go to customers, we hear all the time that we have something running in the cloud. It's up there, it works. I'm not quite sure if it's right or not, but we don't want to touch it because it's running. So we want to make sure that we have that solid foundation and that you understand what we've done for you. And there's one of the things that we've always talked about is the as-is architecture, the to-be architecture, and the plan to get there. We see what you have today, and that gives you the warm, fuzzy feeling that we understand what you have. And then when we start to take it to the to-be architecture in the cloud, that gives us the warm, fuzzy feeling that you understand where we're taking your current architecture. And the plan to get there is exactly that. And then we will go through and build out a minimum viable product so that we can see something, data going in one side as raw data and coming out in a Power BI report. And it's going through all of the different architectural pieces that we have and all of the different phases so that from there you have a minimum viable product, all the pieces are in place, and you have that solid foundation to build from. Then from there, we can go through and innovate on it, of taking your next scenarios, taking the next use cases, and keep building on that solid foundation. And as you can see here, it's circular, because if we get to a point where somebody's not comfortable or something, they think there's a better way to do it, we can fix it. I don't want to say on the fly, but fix it as part of the next iteration. So that way we're improving that solid foundation and we're not building and starting to Frankenstein out the application. And then the last piece that we'll talk about is governance, enablement, and operationalizing the solution. And this is one spot where we always see people falling short, because when you have something on premises, everybody knows how they back it up, how they monitor it, how they do all of that. You have to do the same things in the cloud, and it's just a little bit different. So by us going through and taking this last step of operationalizing your solution, making sure that it's backed up, making sure that it's monitored, making sure that you have the guardrails and the governance around your Azure environment so that you don't do things that can hurt you. Like some of the things that you can put in for governance is, don't let certain people spin up certain things because they cost a lot of money. It's kind of like guardrails of people can bump into it, they won't go over the edge, but they can keep going down the path. And this is approach, as I said, that has worked for us for years of doing application development, and it's very simple, and it's been our recipes for success since we started. So the next client story that we'll talk about is DC Water. In DC Water, when we first talked to them, they said, you know what, we want to do a project that we hope we can get predictive analytics on water main breaks. And if anybody has ever known, I just know that last weekend we went to go to breakfast, and the place that we went to breakfast for, they said we're closed, and they said there was a water main break. And it was funny because we looked out across the street, and sure enough, there was like 13 water trucks out there. The road was all torn up, and businesses were shut down, and it was just a big mess because there was a water main break. What DC Water said is they said, we have a lot of things going on in the pipes that if pressure changes, if there's air gaps, if there's all these different things that happen, those are indicators to us that there's something going on in that pipe. And it's much easier to schedule a road to be closed and have all of the machines come out to dig up the road, fix the problem, and get it back and running, rather than if you all of a sudden start to see water bubble up through the road. They said, we can if we could find out predictive ways to find out that there's going to be a break or we need to do some repairs, that's much more beneficial to us. So what we did is we put together a DPI 30 engagement where they said, we want to monitor the pressure and the air gaps in one of the water lines, and that was their scenario. And from there, they've gone on and built on top of this solution to do a lot of predictive analytics and do predictive maintenance on the water mains. And they were kind of the trendsetter probably about 1.5 to 2 years ago of kind of starting to do this. And a lot of water authorities now are calling us and saying, hey, we want to do that same thing that you did for DC Water because we think it could help us. So the last part that we're talking about is transitioning to the customer. And this is a part where we want to make sure that our customers fully understand what we did for everybody and what we did. And that, as I said before, you can take it. And if you want to go say, hey, we're good, we can build on it on our own, that we do that for you. So the transition to the customer, it's a lot of sharing the project deliverables, all of the architecture and the design that we put together. And the big piece of it is doing the executive presentation and demonstration of going through to all of the project sponsors and making sure that they see the value of what this data platform is providing them. And then, discussing next steps of, hey, what's next? What can we do more to add more value to the business? And as Christy said, one of the things we added this next slide in here is people always are saying, yes, this this engagement, this DPI 30 is, quote unquote free to us, but how much is it going to cost for us to run this thing in Azure going forward? And so one of the things of this final presentation is we're going to go through, and even before the final presentation, we go through the architecture and figure out what we're going to use. We'll put together a sample cost estimate of here's what it's going to cost you month over month to run this. And one of the things when we were talking about the Washington State, they were very concerned of, hey, we want to do all of this compute in the cloud, and we already looked into buying these servers, and it was going to cost us a minimum of $40,000 to $60,000, and then we would only be able to get double the capacity. So one of the things for Washington that was very important was, hey, how much is it going to cost us on an ongoing basis? And I think that this one is pretty close to what the Washington estimate was. And, it came out to be about $2,000 a month. But with this $2,000 a month, they were getting 10x compute capacity. So, they were like, oh, if we did that, that would have cost us, hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy the machines to do this. So yeah, let's move forward with it. So this cost estimate is one of the very important things that we uncover right up at the beginning. And, because as Christy said, is it could be free to you, the engagement is free to you, but the Azure costs are on you. And then one of the other questions that we get asked all the time is like, hey, we have a bigger data initiative that we're already ready to start to embark on. So some of our customers are taking this funded engagement and looping it into their bigger, sights and dreams and saying, hey, we want to do this. And so what Microsoft will do for us is they'll say, hey, that's great. We can take this funded engagement as phase one of a bigger piece of work. And, we'll do the phase one, we'll do all of the stuff that's required by Microsoft and by the customer and by Talon, turn that over. And, you could have phase one or, the first scenario of your larger data project covered, and then keep on going there with a larger statement of work or a larger dream. So when we talk about these things being covered by Microsoft, a lot of people will say, well, we have a bigger thing. Can we loop it all into that? And the answer is definitely yes. If you have something bigger, grander dreams, there's different things that we can do to make this thing work. And the last one I will talk about here is another water authority that we talked to, and it was Austin Water. And they said, hey, that was pretty neat of what you did for DC Water, but we want to go in and look at stamped meter reads for data and start to look for anomalies inside of data, inside of the data and the water usage. And the one thing that I never realized until we got to this project is that people steal water. Is they were looking for anomalies of people, one business pulling water from another main from another business and kind of stealing water. And so they were looking for anomalies in usage so that they could better serve their customers, or, tell some people. There's sometimes that you might see an anomaly in their usage and they would say, hey, you have something going on in your business that you seem like you're using way more water than you should be. So, let's look and see, do you have a leak in a hose or a leak that is just, running down the drain? So they were able to take this and look at meter reads and be able to predict see anomalies in data and water usage. And it was very useful for them and their customers. So I will stop here. And I know that Bart had a few words of wisdom for you guys. He's a lot of your data and AI specialist on the SLG side. So Bart, I'll turn it over to you to let you talk.
Thanks, Dan. I get the privilege of talking to government healthcare customers every day. And now more than ever, I think everyone is being asked to do more, to innovate more, to provide more, to give more insight on the massive amounts of data that our customers have and get to deal with every single day. And so they see the potential of our new technology. They understand all the things that they want to do. You know your business. You know where those bottlenecks are, and you want to work to solve them. And so a lot of these technologies are out there. You're aware of them. But again, as Christy said, where do I start? How do I start doing this? And you don't really have the time anymore to take those long learning courses and to really experiment and do this yourself. So getting guidance through a program like DPI 30 and with a valuable partner like Talon and the ability to go in and actually start and provide value in a very short time frame as part of either an overall project or even just sort of the kickstart you need to start showing some value in this is an invaluable resource. And it's always a pleasure to see the value and the innovative things that customers are doing when they look at a DPI 30 project, the hours that are saved, the influence that it's had, and the data insights that it's produced are a massive benefit to us. So it's always a pleasure to talk to customers and to say, hey, maybe this program could be that open of the door to get you to those goals that you have, to be more innovative, to be more responsible, to save money, and to get a better ROI. So it's always a pleasure to have customers do these. I love seeing the outcomes, and it's always a pleasure to talk to them. So thank you, Dan. It's wonderful to see all the faces here. I look forward to the further conversations, and it's a great program, and we certainly love doing it. So back to you, sir.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So we'll open it up for Q&A. If anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hand and unmute, or you can put them into the chat. And while people are starting to think if we have any questions, one of our next steps here is, if this was interesting to you today, please feel free to reach out to myself, to Christy, to Bart. We can help get all of this stuff going for you. And then I know that one of the questions that comes up all the time is like, we're a government agency, and can we take these types of funding, and how does all that stuff work? And between myself here at Talon and my team of business development managers and Christy and Bart, Microsoft has all of the paperwork, and it's escaping me right now what some of these things are called, but there are different contracts that Microsoft has that allows the SLG folks to take advantage of these funding programs. And Bart, I can't remember what the name of that document, or Christy,
it's a notice and consent form.
Yes,
so it's just very simple.
But yeah, so there's a notice and consent form that is from Microsoft that all of the state and local government agencies will sign, and that allows you to take the funding to embark on these programs.